All right, talking about this week's battles, some good matchups, none bigger than the one that we're going to see in the NHC at Dave S. Walters Memorial Field on Friday night. Columbia City traveling to take on the Homestead Spartans. This was a 31-28 game, very entertaining game in Columbia City last year. What do you think is going to be the big key for this one as the Eagles battle the Spartans?
Well, Columbia City the last 2 weeks has really come out of the gate slow. They trailed Whitco and Belmont at halftime, both of those last 2 games. If they come out slow against Homestead, they'll be down 28-0 before they know what happened. Homestead scored 54 seconds into the game at East Noble last week, and East Noble's a nice team. Homestead, here's the difference with Homestead. They are doing it both offensively and defensively this year. 10 points they've allowed in the last 2 games. This is not your traditional Spartan team that just goes and outscores everybody and then gives up 43 points like they did in week 1 against Huntington North. They rectified some problems defensively, and they've been dominant the last 2 weeks. This is not going to be a good game. I'm telling you, Columbia City will come out slow. Homestead, they'll play pitch and catch between Zach Terrell and Isaac Griffith like they did against East Noble, and it'll be a blowout by halftime.
Yeah, Isaac Griffith, 7 total touchdowns,
Right.
caught 5, ran 1 in, and also threw for 1, so a huge game against East Noble. And was that a big wake-up call if you were the rest of the NHC? Because East Noble, I mean, they beat Concord in
Right.
week 1, who was ranked 4th in 4A. So they're no slouch, even though they've graduated a lot of talented players. And, I mean, they went up to Kendallville and put it on them, did the Spartans.
Homestead looked like they were playing, and this is no disrespect to East Noble because the East Noble is a good team. They will win a lot of games this year. Homestead looked like they were playing against a middle school team. The receivers were so wide open. Zach Terrell had all day. I don't want to say they had a balanced offense. They did run the ball okay, but they didn't need to because they had wide open receivers, and they just threw the ball downfield and scored at will. And so, yeah, this was a notice, but really, as much as the offense is spectacular and everybody knows about that, the thing that's making people shake their heads is that Homestead defense. Guys like Taylor Beam and Rob Wiegand, I mean, a lot of hard-hitting guys, and that's going to be the difference this year.
If you're Columbia City going into this game, if you're Randy Hudgens, what do you tell these guys? What do you do?
Well, you can't play zone defense, I can tell you that right now, because the Homestead offense just finds holes in the zone defense. But, you know, if you try to go man-on-man and match up with Isaac Griffith or some of those guys, you're in trouble too. So really, what you can't do is come out slow, and what you can't do is give up big plays. You have to force Homestead to run the ball. But that's easier said than done. They have a Division I recruit at quarterback. They have talented athletes on the offensive line and receiving corps. I mean, that's easier said than done, but they have to somehow force Homestead to run the ball.
So I'm guessing you like Homestead big.
Big.
I'm going to say Homestead, but I'm going to say in the 7 to 14 point range.
They just beat East Noble 49-3.
But
and that was because they only wanted to win by that much.
But yet Columbia City came back to win against Belmont, but they were without their starting quarterback. Connor Slavich stepped in, 3 touchdowns. I just feel like they're going to be really pumped up for this game, especially considering how it went. And I still think, you know, Homestead is that team that everybody wants to knock off. They're the Dwenger of the NHC right now, and I think maybe we see a couple streaks snapped back-to-back weeks. I don't know. I don't know.
Well, who am I to say? I was wrong. I was 0 for 3 last week.
I'm not going to say it, but, you know, we could go there. Let's go to the ACAC now because this is, to me, one of the more interesting conferences. Obviously, Leo is the front runner considering they've won back-to-back championships. But you've got Heritage, who is my surprise team this year at South Adams, and I think if you're a football fan, this is going to be an entertaining football game.
Oh, absolutely. 2 very strong offensive teams. Heritage has played a little bit tougher competition than South Adams, but South Adams has beaten everybody they've had to play. And so, yeah, if you like offense, this is going to be a good game for you. Heritage racked up over 450 yards in total offense last week, and South Adams has been on fire, no pun intended, all season long. So this is a pick 'em matchup. If you want to go to a football game that's going to be a really good game this week, this is a good one to see.
I like a little Starfire punnery.
Yeah.
Get thee to a punnery, as they said back in olden times.
Best nickname in high school sports, Starfires.
Ooh, in the state of Indiana or everywhere?
Anywhere.
If they change it to the Star Crunch, like Little Debbie, that's what I would call the defense. I'd call it the Star Crunch. And pass out little Star Crunches you could put on your helmet. When you take a look at the offense for South Adams, they're averaging 40 points a game. Are you a little concerned because they might not have faced a defense that's as good as Heritage's at this point?
Oh, that's like I said, yeah, they haven't played the schedule that Heritage has played. And so, yeah, that's a possibility. But you've got dual threats in Dustin Wanner and Marcus Rich. Marcus Rich is actually a two-way star, does it both on both sides of the ball. So they have a lot of weapons that they can hurt you with. So, you know, South Adams isn't going to be overwhelmed this week, even though they are playing a little bit tougher team than they have been.
All right. Now, there aren't a lot of great SAC matchups this week. The schedule is a little, I'll say, lopsided, but one of the most intriguing matchups, Snyder at Penn. The Kingsmen, we don't know a lot about them because obviously they're not in our area, but they are 3-0, played some decent competition, and Snyder goes in 2-1 after scoring 62 points against Northrop. How do you see this game playing out?
Well, Penn is still Penn, and they play a very difficult schedule every single year. So they are not going to be overwhelmed by Snyder at all. That's going to be a very, very difficult game for Snyder to go on the road all the way up there and beat the Kingsmen. Penn's already knocked off Valparaiso this year to open the season. Valparaiso traditionally is one of the Northern Indiana's best programs. So this is going to be a really tough matchup. But I will say this about Snyder. They have a lot of new faces this year that are getting their feet on the ground. They're developing at quarterback. They're developing defensively. Everybody knew what John Nelson was going to be able to do, and he's been strong all season. It's going to be a big, big win if Snyder can get this done.
At this point, because of what John Nelson's been able to do, as you know, Phelps at the quarterback position gets his feet, has he been the most valuable player in the SAC at this point, maybe?
Well, you can make that argument because he's helped all those young players develop because worst case scenario, you can always hand it off to John Nelson and he'll gain 7 yards. And so, yeah, he has been very, very valuable. You know, it's always the debate, do you give an award to the most outstanding player or the most valuable player? And like you said, John Nelson's been very, very valuable for Kurt Tippmann so far this year.
You could obviously argue Jalen Smith is the most talented, James Kanapke, they're a slew of
guys.
guys.
You know, Lures has a lot of guys. You know, if Jalen Smith decided to take a week off, which he never would, but if he did, Lures is still going to win. They've got so many other weapons. Whereas, you know, early on with a brand new quarterback in Phelps, you know, you needed that reliable veteran running back to help your offense.
I agree. I loves me some John Nelson. I like that. Every week we know he's going to get 100 yards.
Right.
Anything else that you're looking forward to about Week 4?
Well, there are a number of other matchups that are going to be very competitive games. New Haven at Carroll, I think, will be a very, very interesting game. Carroll is better than well, I guess they're 2-1 now because they got the forfeit against Delta for the ineligible player because that's what Delta does.
I said by a true Yorktown guy.
That's right.
I'm a Muncie Burris guy, so I'll agree with you.
Well, Grant Zagunda is their coach. He's a Yorktown guy. He's going to be mad at me for saying that. Delta does a great job, great program. But what Carroll did in going down there and nearly knocking off the Eagles was very impressive. Now, can they contain Tavon Hurst, who is now rolling? You know, remember Week 1, Tavon Hurst didn't do a whole lot. He's rolling now, so that's a really interesting matchup. And another interesting matchup is Concordia at Southside. How about what the Cadets did this weekend in beating Wayne 41-7? That's another one I never saw coming because the athleticism of Wayne usually prevails over the Cadets. But, you know, they've got a really good quarterback in Tanner Spencer, maybe the best quarterback nobody knows. And then in the ACAC, the big matchup is Adams Central going to Garrett and whether they can contain Todd Fricky. And, you know, I don't read too much into Adams Central's loss to Leo, playing a 4A team, a really, really good 4A team. So, you know, that's kind of an anomaly. I think Adams Central can really scare Garrett this weekend.
I like what you said about Concordia because I had seen them every week, and I just wondered if they can finally put it in the end zone. They've been able to move the ball. They had like 250 yards against Dwenger in the first half of that game. Dwenger had like 110, and they just could not put the ball in the end zone. And then they went ahead and did it this past week, and you're right, Tanner Spencer, over 250 yards, 4 touchdown passes. Doesn't hurt that he's got Mark Rogers to throw it to.
That's true.
A good 6'3", 6'4" out there on the outside. But should be an interesting week of football, as it always is. He's Tom Davis, I'm Glenn Marini, and we'll be back again next week to talk prep football here on Inside the Zone.